Hey friends, so the 2024 Atlantic January to March bluefin season has come to an end, and every year we do a return and report, Professor, on the lessons that we learned. And did we learn any lessons this year?
Man, always getting a lesson taught to me.
Oh, the lessons were there. In this video, we're going to talk about the 5 biggest lessons that we took from the 2024 bluefin season. All right, lesson number 1, Professor, would be what?
Just the highs and lows. I mean, there is so many highs and there's so many lows.
It's emotional, this bluefin fishing, isn't it?
It is, man.
So when you look back, what would you say was the biggest high that we experienced this year, or you experienced?
Well, I would say it would be, I think it was the second day that we fished in the season.
Yep.
The whole fleet, nobody was finding fish, getting bites, anything like that. We was kind of ventured.
Slow day.
Yeah, slow day. Kind of ventured off. There was a couple other boats near us or whatever, and bam, we found a fish. Hooked 3.
We hooked 3, and we ended up with one that was the biggest of the season, which was
108.
108 inches, dressed out at what?
5:30, I believe.
5:30, and that day we actually did make money. So those were one of the good days. One of the biggest lows that you experienced this year?
I would say probably learning that the season was closing at, I think it was...
It came up on us like,
yeah,
bam.
It was Thursday at like 10:30 a.m. I got the email and said it was going to close Friday night at 11.
And we hadn't been planning on fishing that Friday.
No, the weather was terrible.
Yeah.
I laid that Thursday because of the weather, and I was planning on laying on Friday, and the weather was going to get better. And in my heart, I knew... In my mind, I thought they were going to close it Monday night or Tuesday night, but they did. They had other plans. So here we go. We leave the dock at 1 p.m. and head out to
Foreverville.
Yeah, to try to chase a little shot of water that we thought was there, that was not there, and then by the time we got there, we trolled for about an hour before it got dark, and then overnight it was so rough you could not even really rest and sleep. So it was that was probably my low, not catching a fish, in that last day.
It is a true roller coaster, bluefin fishing the whole season. The highs are high, but man, the lows are low.
Yeah, I mean, one day you'll go out there and you land right on the fish and hook up, and
you're like, this is the greatest job ever.
Yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning, you got a fish on the road back there, and you're like, this is awesome. This is the greatest thing ever. And then the next day, you've been out there for 14 hours and you just can't get a bite. It's so hot. It's a roller coaster, like you say.
All right, cool. Well, that was lesson number 1.
Yeah.
Lesson number 2, Professor, what say you?
And this is a lesson I get taught nonstop, and it's worse in the wintertime. The inlet is no joke, nothing to be taken, for granted. It's in better shape than it has been in years, but you have to play the tide in the wind when you're coming through there, because it can really, really, really damage your boat.
This year, it was interesting. We saw a ton of boats run aground on the inside of the bridge too. People think about the inlet, it's just the bar.
Yeah, it's not.
It's the whole thing. Yeah. I mean, because I think it was at least 4 or 5 boats this year ran aground, and that is not a good day for sport fish.
No, not at all. And even though you're on the inside of the bridge, things are constantly changing in there with the wind direction.
You want to have a dredge there.
Yeah, right. So, and it's all about going every day and knowing how to read those shoals, but it's still hard in the dark because you can't see. Yeah. So it's like some days, some weeks, it'll be 3 or 4 days stretch before I see all that during daylight. So it's just kind of tough. Like you say, you can't run buoy to buoy. You kind of have to have a feel for it, follow the old track line and stuff like that. It's scary. Every morning, every night it's scary.
All right, so we've got highs and lows. We've got the inlet is nothing to mess with. And so lesson number 3, Professor, is what?
Well, I mean, this is a thing that I've always known, and it also gets instilled in my mind. But just like that last day, that night we spent out there, it's just Mother Nature and that ocean is relentless. It never lets up. As humans, we try to seek shelter when conditions get bad. But when you're out there, there's no shelter.
It can feel pretty alone too.
Yeah.
Like this is a weird feeling.
And it is just relentless, wave after wave after wave. So, I mean, I always learn this lesson. You really need to study the forecast and the weather patterns.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that was number 3, and so lesson number 4, Professor, would be what?
You can forget trying to figure out a bluefin tuna.
You mean just because everybody in the fleet caught one in one spot one day, they're not going to be there the next?
No, my goodness. Trying to figure out what they're eating, or their circle, where they're migrating. I mean, this year I learned it more than any time I've ever seen. There's just no rhyme or reason really that I can figure out to what they do.
And there were definitely days where it was fire at a spot, and you think, there's so many fish here, it's just amazing. And you go the next morning, and it's a ghost town, and well, sure, they're transient animals, but you just would like to think that they're going to hang around. They don't necessarily hang around.
Right, and you'll be going along a change for 5 miles, and there won't be a scratch on the screen, and then all of a sudden you get to one point and the screen's lit up, and the next mile is nothing but fish. You know what I mean? So it's just, you'll have a fish that, one fish we had this year when we had it at the back of the boat, it's spitting up squid, and then we got it in the boat, it started spitting up bunkers. So they just go to show you they have a wide array of food that they target. You know what I mean? So this year, more than any, I could not figure out their pattern.
Yeah, they are unpredictable animals. All right, and finally, Professor, lesson number 5.
It's pretty crazy how spoiled we are with satellite imagery, because this year there was a lot of days where there were a lot of clouds. We could not get a satellite shot, and it just makes me think back to before all that even existed. You know,
how'd they do it?
The old timers, they just pointed her east or southeast, you know, and fished till they found a change or something to fish on, a break, something like that. But it's just it's amazing the technology that we lean on, and when we don't have it, how helpless you feel. You know what I mean?
Right, because when you can't see where that temperature change is, then it's really hard to say, we're going to go there today. And then you do feel like, okay, which way do I go? I mean, there's just so many different places that you could go.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, those are some great lessons, and I'm sure there's always more, but it's a learning experience. And speaking of learning experiences, we would love to have you here on Speechless with us. And one of the things that we take the most pride in, I think, is with our charter customers, is making sure they, if they want to, have a truly learning experience, and they can be a part of that experience. So make sure you come join this guy and his son. We're slip number 92 here at Pirates Cove Marina. Booking out for the summer. It's going to be an amazing summer. We can't wait to see you. You know, those yellowfin are going to be running like crazy in May and June, and then you're going to have tons of mahi throughout the summer, and you got the billfish. They're going to be just doing their thing later on in the summer as it goes, and so it's just going to be a great time. And
I'm excited.
Yeah, very, very excited. We can't wait to have you. So until the next time, everyone, stay salty.